Liftoff of mission 41D, first flight of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
For the century. 3, 2, 1, blast off. Hey, welcome to Health or High Water, your new favorite podcast. If you are a returning guest, thank you so much for joining us. We're excited. Again, we have Bethany. First off, what's going on? How you feeling today?
Feeling great.
Yes.
Yep.
Love it.
You had a big milestone today, didn't you?
Trip is here.
Yes.
And we're going to fill you in on all the happenings that's going on. We're hoping you're having a wonderful Thursday. A little gloomy here in Denver, Colorado, but all in all, it's a beautiful day.
It's a great day.
I gotta say so. I mean, things have been a little crazy here. We had your soft opening.
Yep.
We got just a bunch going on right now. I'm just really excited, dude.
Yeah, things have changed quite a bit. You know, we'll catch up the new people that are joining us. But yeah, we're here out of Ascend Performance Training, and Bethany is the owner of Pelvic Harmony. So she is now open for business. Not had your grand opening yet, but you're already starting to take on clients.
Yep, I had a few this morning, and those all went really well. So I'm really excited to get running and get things going.
And I'll vouch right away. I am super picky. I'm super picky on like soft tissue. I feel like a lot of times I get it, I'm just like, oh, what is, I have some back issues, like my upper back. It always just, it's just my thing. And I had a massage today, and I immediately was like, holy crap, I need to do this regularly.
It's important for your health. It's really important. Recovery is one of the most important things. If you can't recover, you can't work out the next day. You're feeling like crap. I mean, we don't harp on it enough, and we put in our programs and stuff. But I mean, recovery is everything.
Amen. I believe it. Yeah.
Yes. So go ahead and shout out our sponsors, Mr. Tripp.
All right. We want to thank Gene Planet, our genetic testing partnership company. Thank you guys so much for giving us state-of-the-art technology to make sure we're helping our clients. We want to thank Cauliflower Labs, our supplement brand. Make sure you guys are go checking that out on ascendperformancetraining.com. We want to thank You vs. You, our clothing sponsor. O2 Boost, the oxygen pills that just won't quit. Taste Life Nutrition as well. Shout out. Make sure you guys are watching that radio show, as well as Herculean Adventure. If you are an athlete, want to go to Costa Rica, grow, then that is the place for you. Go to HerculeanAdventure.com and check that out. As well as Health Profiling, a book now out on Amazon and Kindle. Is that everything?
It is. Dun, dun, dun. We are getting into our episode today. We're going to keep it conversational, all right, and kind of tell some personal stories, obviously as much as you guys would like to. Today's episode is going to be around stress and anxiety, depression, mostly around anxiety as it relates to fitness. I think it's something that I've seen more prevalent than ever. So why don't you guys kind of like take some, turns and, is that something either of you have experienced in your life, anxiety attacks or anxiety? And then what are like some ways to manage it?
Yeah, I think especially now since COVID, everyone is much more virtual, online all the time. Instagram is huge, and the comparison game is stronger than ever. And if you let yourself get down that road, it's such a bad destination and just cultivates anxiety and stress and demotivation, honestly, for me. And in life in general, anxiety has had its little time slot in my life for sure. And I think that one of the biggest things in dealing with that was just managing my own expectations of myself and being realistic. And I would be really anxious if I had these huge expectations and I felt like I wasn't getting anywhere close to them. And so that's kind of been my little history with that.
I feel like anxiety is like living in the future. Depression is kind of living in the past, and it's hard to live in the present. And it's such a big thing, and it's something, I've dealt with real bad the past year. You've seen me at my worst when I'm like shaking and I can't just freaking out over stuff that I can't control. And it's so important to ground yourself. I don't know what I'd do without a journal, to be honest. Journaling is so important for my daily routine, making sure I stay grounded, living in the present. Sometimes you don't even realize you're having an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
You're just all worked up, and you it's hard to center yourself and be like, oh, I'm having an anxiety attack. It's, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the advice you get is like, oh, just calm down, or like, you know, these words, and you know, somebody experiencing anxiety or, you know, some of these feelings are trying to find like useful things. One thing, as I've been training forever, my entire life, one thing I noticed is like breathing is one of the most important things to focus on. So like when the other day, you know, I came in to talk to you and I was like, hey, what's the agenda for today? And you went through, you know, 15 things you had to get done. And you were like, you could and I was like, hey man, step back, take a deep breath. And as soon as you did that, and as soon as you had the opportunity to do that, and I was like, focus on one thing. Forget all these other things. Let's get your mind focused on one thing, right? And you've done that for me too. And God, how important is that, right?
Yeah.
How important is breathing? How, you know, is that connect with you at all, Bethany?
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you get specifically into your pelvic health and pelvic floor, just the way that you manage the pressure in your abdomen and your thoracic space, and it can put a lot of negative pressure into just your pelvis and all of those tissues, and it can cause some repercussions. So good breathing and good mobility in your spine, and just being aware of your own habits and how to manage those and create better habits. It's really important.
You know, as well too, is, you know, surrounding yourself with the right people that can, like, you know, you've helped me out and vice versa. And I think a community is huge on that too. Is someone who understands when you're having these episodes and when things are going on. Like, you are the people you surround yourself with. So everyone listening right now, if you're having an anxiety attack and, you know, people are just like making fun of you or like not acknowledging it and, you know, just telling you to calm down, you know, maybe find some other friends. You know.
I want to talk about a pet peeve I have.
Oh, great.
Oh no.
I figure at least during the episode, I'm not gonna have to be negative, but I gotta mix it up. One of the things, so if you follow social media people, there's a guy, Wim Hof, and he's been, you know, big and developing the realm of like breathing, getting in ice or getting in ice baths or cold baths, and people are saying, oh, this Wim Hof breathing method. My biggest pet peeve is these breathing techniques aren't new. And so it was like, people are like, oh, you do the Wim Hof. And so I'm just going to start calling everything after me.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be like, oh, you do the Brett you do the Trip Parks workout program.
Yeah.
Makes me so frustrated. But anyways, there's a lot of different breathing techniques. We kind of brushed on the surface, and I think part of our podcast here is we have a responsibility to go a little bit more into depth, right? Give a little bit of technical expertise that we have. I'll give you an example. One example of the different breathing things that I did, this was yesterday, was the difference between powerlifting breathing and bodybuilding breathing. I was describing that to a client. One of them was, let's say, the tempo of your, you know, descent of the weight. You're drawing air in, and then when you're exhaling it and pushing it out. Yep. But like when you're doing a deadlift, you're breathing differently, right? So you're coming to the top, and if you look at physiologically, like the diaphragm, and I know this is hard because we're on a podcast to describe it because I'm doing a motion with my hands. But if you're looking at the diaphragm, and you're just picturing what your diaphragm's doing during a powerlifting exercise, it goes through this rapid inhalation. Versus, you know, if you're picturing like a bodybuilding exercise where you're drawing the air in. So, you know, when you're discussing, you know, these different thoracic breathing exercises and somebody who may not have experience, no, you have experience. I'm just saying. Somebody who may not have experience of going, okay, breathing exercises. Okay, great.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So I feel like we need to describe what it means to, like a breathing exercise. So, you know, strengthening the diaphragm's a muscle. We're trying to get it stronger. Also, you know, singing has different ones. So this is a muscle that we can coordinate. Okay. It has a function. So your diaphragm is assists in stabilization of your spine, assists in, you know, obviously all those muscles to help you breathe, assist in digestion. It has a lot of functions. But one of the things is it directly correlates to how you manage stress. So that's why people who say, man, I'm stressed out, I'm going to go for a long run. Well, why does that work for me? Because your body develops this pattern of breathing. Or, hey, when I'm stressed, I want to write in my journal. Why does that de-stress me? Because your body develops a pattern of breathing. So, if you're out there and you're going through like severe anxiety attacks, depression, and, people are given this surface level advice like, oh, why don't you just go for a run? It's not exactly surface level because what they're doing is they're teaching you to develop a habit that correlates to your diaphragm getting stronger and having pattern breathing. Long-winded, but absolutely essential to managing your stress.
Well, and as well too is like if you are doing positive things like going for a run, working out during these stressful times, your body naturally releases dopamine during this process because you are going through a this hellish situation of biking or going through a hard lift, and that helps you stress as well, right? So there's all these different things that working out, fitness can help with these stressors and manage things a little bit better. If you guys are sitting out sitting on your couch or don't work out and you're stressed all the time, go out for a run, go out for a workout. There's so many benefits from physical exercises and physical exertion that it just has to be done. If I didn't have working out, I would have blown my lid years ago.
Yeah, I had an old patient probably a year ago. She was in a really bad car accident, and she had so much back pain, upper back, lower back, hips, and she couldn't even tolerate any like manual soft tissue work. And so at one point we just did breathing, and we worked on her posture as she's breathing. We did breathing when she was laying down, and I talked her through it, and she was like, I feel so much better. Like my pain is decreased. I feel less stress. So that was really cool to watch the impact of all that.
You did it for one session or for many sessions?
Over a couple months.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Focused on like where to breathe at, like where to feel the breath and all that.
Yeah, which direction to breathe in,
Gotcha.
like visualizations as she's breathing.
Okay.
How long to hold it, how long to exhale. Yeah, timing of that.
Okay.
Mental blank, just to blank out everything as she's doing it. Yeah.
Well, I swear, like I did a class on yoga breathing before my season playing for the RPFL, and I was the only one that was using my entire chamber of my lungs, and I could stay on the field longer than anybody else because they weren't breathing right. They're not ever taught to breathe, and we kind of talked a little bit that James Harden book, Breathe. It's an amazing book. It's when I started like reading that book and understanding that your nose is the best filtration system ever invented. Right, you're supposed to breathe through your nose.
Yeah.
Our smell was our first sense developed when we were developing organisms. Like it's the strongest thing. That's why taste is directly developed with smell, right? So taping up your mouth at night, to help curve mouth breathing is really big. Trying to breathe through your nose throughout the day to try to exercise those muscles out so you can and get used to that. Those kind of things are such big game changers when you're looking at stress, looking at the way you work out, looking at the way you function throughout the day.
What goes into your body
exactly
is different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to chronic pain. It ties into chronic pain too. And I know a lot of people out there know what I'm talking about. There are people that are, they're like superheroes because they go through so much pain on a regular basis. They just live their life at like a 7.5 or 8 out of 10. And people who aren't in pain, you just don't understand what it's like to be chronically in pain.
Yeah.
And breathing plays such a big role in that. I remember a guy walked in here into the studio, and he'd been through like 3 car accidents, and everything was so, like you said, you could touch him and just in so much pain. I said something to him that made him just break down crying. I was like, and I'm trying to remember what I said. I was like, you have a superpower because when you're in pain, your senses, your awareness of it is just so acute. Like you have this, like you're really attached to the moment. Because when you're always in pain, you're in the moment. It's almost like fasting. When you're hungry, you're in the moment. When you're focused on your breathing, you're in the moment. So it's just crazy to see. There's a whole field of breathing. There's a whole study of it, and I think it ties directly to like depression, anxiety. And I think that's the gateway to like foundationally figuring out how to manage it. I don't know if it'll ever necessarily go away, or that this is like an exact remedy, but I know it's the foundation to like figuring out, why am I anxious? Why am I this or that or the other? Rather than getting on pills immediately and going, let's put some lorazepam in my system. Let's do this, which is kind of the standard route.
Well, yeah, it's standard because, at least you know my qualm with doctors and stuff. Like, they just want you to spend money and they get kickbacks from every, prescription that they sell with that kind of stuff, when there is these holistic ways that work, right? There's natural ways to do this, and speaking on anxiety and pills and stuff like that is kind of exacerbating the problem, because a lot of these pills are supposed to be short term, right? Like, hey, we're going to put you on Xanax for 4 weeks until we can get you to a therapist, and then that Xanax doesn't go away. Start having a chemical dependency on the thing, and then when you come off it, you feel like ass. So there's I'm glad we're talking about this, because it's a huge issue, that we're just putting Band-Aids on gashes, really.
Yeah, your body has all these, like, it's way smarter than we are right now. We're trying to figure it out, right? We know nothing about, like, we're at the base of it, I feel like. But I do know that our bodies are constantly sending us signals. And I think right now this is a little highbrow or in depth, but I think right now the wave of people is trying to understand what these signals mean. We're trying to, like, grab onto these powers. I've seen people heal from cancer based on a mindset, based on being positive and knowing, like, hey, I'm going to heal, right? Versus somebody with a negative mindset. So we do know that we can tap into all these powers. I think there have been a lot of studies with, like, monks and stuff that have done these incredible things all through their breathing.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you and I have talked about this a lot, about how breathing is the center of everything. It's the very first thing I teach in lifting is, like, all right, you're going to do this, you're going to do this.
Well, it kills me when I see someone teaching a lift or something like that, and they don't even talk about breathing.
Nothing, not one thing.
You just see those kids that are, like, 15 years old, the gym first time, and their face is all red. They're trying to push up a bench press, and like, you're like, breathe.
Hernia.
Yeah.
There's a risk if you don't breathe right. You're not taking, like you said, like, the different kind of breathing. If you're not breathing in on that pull and exhaling on that push, there's no rhythm. There's nothing going on with that.
So I wanted to move into touch on depression. I know it's a touchy subject. Before I kind of give my thoughts on it, I wanted to say, if you guys have any experience, you don't necessarily have to say you've been through depression, but maybe if you have something to add to the conversation on if somebody's out there, or if there's some remedies, or even if that's an experience or a story maybe.
Yeah, I just think I've seen it so subtle in some of my close friends, and you have to have some good people around you that are going to ask you, like, hey, I feel like you're not yourself. Like, can we talk about it? Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? And sometimes it can be so sneaky, and it can just creep in, especially with, like, big life events, whether that's traumatic or even good events sometimes. Like, postpartum depression is a very real thing, very common. And your friend group and the people close to you that spend the most time with you, you need to make sure they're really solid and that they really actually care about you, that they will check in if they feel like something's wrong.
What is postpartum depression, by the way?
So after having a child, not necessarily the first. Sometimes the first is great. Sometimes you'll have more symptoms with a second or third. It just depends on the person. But just depression in that season of life where you're not sleeping, everything is focused on the baby, and you had this huge life event, and it's really common. Yeah.
As well as hormones are going crazy too, and
yeah. All the hormones fluctuating and the physical changes, and your whole home is a different schedule, and you can feel really solitary and isolated in that season because it's very acute and it changes day to day. Like,
yeah. When you hear the word depression, so here's my question on that. So when you hear the word depression, you think clinical, like something's wrong with me, right? If you have like a code or something, like this person's depressed. Wouldn't that just be described then as a natural part of life? Like, hey, I just had my third kid. Like, everything's focused on, my whole world has changed now. This may be my last child. Like, wouldn't that sadness or that feeling, like that, whatever that experience is, wouldn't that be considered a normal part of life?
I think it probably should be, in that we should just talk about it more.
Yeah.
Pre-event.
Hey, this could definitely have, like, totally real feelings. There's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and give you the resources that you have ahead of time to treat it and to manage it, and
Totally.
And then you're adding a genetic factor in there too. Like, are you predisposed to be depressed?
Yeah.
Are you predisposed to have fear and anxiety? Are you did a traumatic life event end up like switching one of those predispositions off or whatnot? And that's something that I've been fighting for fucking forever, right? Like having my grandpa murdered at 18. Like I've been using comedy and stuff or like trying to make people laugh because I'm so sad inside. That's why I make jokes all the time and whatnot. It's because I know what it's like to be at your fucking lowest. And I want to make sure everyone around me is happy because I don't want to ever see like that, So like for me, I've been battling forever, and it's hard. It's you have some good days, you have some bad days, but I feel like that was that Robin Williams quote that like the people that try to make you laugh the most are the most sad on the inside, and I think that's really true. Is because those kind of people, those people who want to be comedians and want to do this, are struggling themselves. Like, hey, I know what it's like to be at my lowest.
So check in on your jokester friends.
Yeah.
See how they're doing.
As soon as they make a joke, you okay?
I always make it a habit when and you guys know this, but I always make it a habit when I'm training somebody of, hey, how's your day going? How you feeling? And you can know. I actually told, I can't remember who it was. I told someone a funny story about your Trip. I was like, every time I come in, I'm like, hey, good morning, Trip. And I was like, I know how Trip's feeling. Exit by how he answers that question.
Yeah.
I was like, but you're like, oh, I'm doing great. Or you're like, good. I'm like,
Hi.
all right. I was like, all right.
I don't hide it very well.
Yeah. So I'm always paying attention to those cues, right? That's just I'm always looking at those nonverbal cues. It's crazy to know how much of the message we send to each other is our nonverbal cues. It makes up the majority of our message, and then there's what we're saying and how we're saying it and the context and all that. I had a client that was super like clinically depressed, and I trained her for 5 years or so. It was a long time. And she would always come in and I ask her, like, hey, how you doing today? She's like, I'm here. And she would say that for years at a time. But like after like 2.5 years, she'd start to like smirk when she said it. Like she wasn't happy, but she's like, I'm here, and would kind of like laugh and stuff. And I look back on that, and I'm so proud of what she did because I picture two different people. One, the depressed person that didn't show up for the workouts, that said, you know what, I don't feel right today. I don't feel good. And the other person who showed up for the workouts, who busted her ass, who looked great. Yeah, she still did have, body image issues, but honestly, from a lot of like authentic validation from me, not flattery. So flattery's not good, but from authentic validation from me being like, hey man, you are crushing it. Like here, that made more progress. So just a shout out to the people out there listening. If you are going through, tough time, depression, or have a son or a daughter or somebody close in your family, a lot of people out there are going through it. Just know that there are other people out there that, that want to help you, number one, and that if you just show up to these workouts, right? Show up for yourself. Your future self is going to be really proud of you. And I hope that's not too surface level for you guys, but.
Well, no, it's and to add a community aspect to what you're saying too is like, you don't know what someone else is going through, right? You go to a grocery store, someone's picking up some Cheez-Its or whatever, and like they might have just lost their father. They might be sick themselves, and what you said before is like, hey, how's your day going? Like a little hello and like how you doing, and oh man, that's awesome, and just trying to be supportive, even to strangers, could make or break someone's day.
It's crazy when you listen, like really listen to somebody, and you can tell they haven't been listened to in a long time.
Yeah.
And they just kind of get that wide eye thing. Like
they're like, oh my God, I can say more stuff? What?
Like you're actually listening to the words that come out after you ask this question?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a community factor there, man. Like we are straying so far away from that, as a community and as ethically, and we need to be there for our neighbors. And I don't care if you're, Republican, Democrat, or I don't care. Like we need to be there for our neighbors because we are just eroding away the most important, amazing part about America was that community and us being there for each other, and it's just sad. So I'm going to challenge everybody out there listening, is to go say one nice thing to someone today. Try to make a positive impact. Takes no time at all to give someone a compliment.
Yeah, I love that. You may think that sounds cheesy, but it is not. It is very real. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, conversationally is behavioral psychology. So one thing I put that in my bio, right? Behavioral psychology. Well, I didn't go to school for behavioral psychology. I'm not a doctor. I'm a personal trainer.
You're not a doctor?
Yeah, right? I know. I'm a personal trainer. But I'm going to pass it over to you. I want to talk about that real quick. What does that mean to you? Does that mean anything to you guys at all? Have you heard it? Do you know what it means? Does it, both of you guys?
Same time? You go first. Go
There's
first.
no right or wrong answer. I just wanted to talk about it today.
I think everyone should do it. Honestly, I've had my bout with it, and it was so helpful and constructive, and everyone needs it. And if you don't think you need it, you probably need it double as much as someone who does think they need it.
I took a class on it in college, and it really changed my eyes about, how people act and, things they might do. And I think it's important to everyone at least study on it and learn about what behavioral psychology is, because it kind of explains who we are, why we act the way we act, and it gives some clarity to understanding people, and I think there's a lot of again, going back to the community aspect, there's a lot of disengaged because we don't understand each other. And using behavioral psychology, we can kind of bridge that gap communally.
Can you expand? What was your bout? You said you had a bout. Like, what did you mean by that? And
It was...
you don't have to get into personal stuff. You don't want to, but I'm just wondering what you meant by all that.
Last spring-ish, I feel like. So 2022, spring, summer. I was just feeling a lot of anxiety about life and where I was going and not feeling productive and not feeling good enough. And so I had a few months where I was going to see someone, and it was so helpful. And I still use some of the tools that she had given me during that time. And the Christmas after those sessions, she had given me a really good tool, and it helped with all the family dynamics and the stress of that. And yeah, I'm a big advocate.
That's awesome. A tool like, hey, when this happens, think of it this way or do this. Or
Yeah, it was do this little activity, write these things down, and put them in this shoebox that you leave at home. And then when you go travel for Christmas, everything in that shoebox stays where you put it, so you can't take that with you.
So compartmentalizing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Learning how to put things in their place and bring them up when they need.
It was a lot of false identity labels and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. So anyways, I wanted to touch on that because I realized I had it in my bio and I use so much of it and I do a lot of it, and to actually be on the podcast and explain it. So just in real simple dummy terms for all of us, it's studying the pattern of behaviors rather than the psychology of the pattern of our behaviors rather than the pattern of our thoughts. Right? I think this, I feel this. No, I did this, I said this, I went here. When you look at the behaviors of somebody, you can, get to know a lot about who they are as a person.
Yeah.
This is a little, like I said, this gets deep. But this is kind of why we have the podcast. It's trying to figure out who we are as people too. Are we the thoughts we have and the feelings we experience, or are we the things we say, the things we do, our behaviors?
Getting philosophical up in
This
here.
is super philosophical, but honestly, there's no point to having a podcast if we're not going to have these tough discussions.
Yeah.
So this pertains to personal training directly because we're working on behaviors. When people come to us, me, you, and they want to change, make a huge life change, we're focused on behaviors. I don't care. I don't care if you're not. I didn't feel like working out today. It doesn't concern me whether you felt like it or not. What concerned me was whether you showed up. That was a behavior. So it's an interesting thing out there. Go and do some research on it, and it'll change your life. There's a lot of cool history on it. So yeah.
Let's have an episode just on that one day.
Okay.
Just talk about behavioral psychology.
We can dive into it. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about habits in extent for a few episodes, but we haven't really gone into the behaviors of it and behavioral psychology and why we do what we do and why we're why we can't force ourselves to go to the gym and have these mental blocks and all that. We definitely have to have a whole episode just on that.
For sure, we need to. Yeah. And it happens. Focus on your. You can look at your own life or look at someone else's life, and it could go. Oh, every time this is said to me, I feel this way.
Yep.
All right, and then I act this way. So why do I? And then you can go back, and this goes to everybody who's tried to fix themselves. Everybody who's been like, oh man, I went through something. I need to. Or anybody who's tried to grow as an individual and look at themselves and go, man, I wish I was a better person. And they go to look at their own behaviors. Why do I behave this way? So this is deep. But when you get to lifting and you come into personal training, we focus on just creating these great behaviors, lifting, eating well, thinking well, all this stuff. So you're never a pro at this. We're never a pro. We always got to keep learning and keep inspiring each other to grow and challenge each other. So, final thoughts.
Pineapple does go on pizza.
Love it.
I agree, actually.
I love the confidence. I hate the opinion.
Really? No.
2 against 1 is a democracy.
Yeah. Outvoted.
Suck it, Aristotle.
No, but I do like barbecue chicken pizza, and some people say that's not pizza.
Oh my God, that's so good.
No.
No,
No.
No.
All right, great. Well, thanks for joining us on this crazy, deep, short dive into health or high water on some topics. We are going to expound on them later. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. Thanks all the viewers in all the crazy places around the world that are now joining. And thanks to Bethany for now being a part of what we're doing. Join us on this podcast and bringing the much-needed female energy into the sporadic lives of Trip and I. And thank you to those who have been supporting us and all of our sponsors, Gene Planet and U and Calval Labs and O2 Boost and all the people who have supported us. Big things happening, so we'll catch you on the next episode of Health or High Water.
Bye.
Peace.
Brought to you by the shallow end of the pool.